What's up, guys? Pypo here, bringing you a video today of how to spec and play your Fury Warrior in 6.1. This is going to be a PvP guide. Sorry for you PvE guys out there. This is going to be strictly for PvP. So obviously this is for the Fury spec guys, so just make sure you have that selected, and then we're going to go straight into talents. Number one will be Juggernaut. Now this is a very crucial talent because it makes it so you can charge every 12 seconds instead of every 20, and this is just going to help out immensely for being able to stay on top of people. Some people do like to get double time and they can use it to great effect. Me personally, I don't like it after you've already used the second charge, and most times you're not going to be killing someone within a second charge. You're going to have to charge a lot more than that in one arena or one BG or something like that. So I go for Juggernaut. Warbringer is okay, but it's not. A lot of people can just get out of roots. A lot of the stuff you're trying to charge and get on top of, you can just get out of roots, and you're going to use Juggernaut to much more effect than something like Warbringer. So I definitely would pick up Juggernaut for your first talent. Number 30 is going to be Enraged Regeneration. Now, these other two here aren't necessarily horrible. I mean, Second Death can definitely be considered horrible. Impending Victory is used a lot for PvE and that sort of thing, and if you can actually stay on top of stuff and do a lot of damage, it can actually be okay. But as far as for PvP is concerned, a 1 minute cooldown for a 10% heal and an additional 20% over 5 seconds is just going to be, it's way too good to pass up. Also, you can use this while doing other things. For instance, if you're in a blade storm or if you're doing something like that, you can still cast the spell. So it's very good, especially if you're stunned or something like that and you're in a bit of a bind. You can still cast this heal on yourself, and it might actually save your life. So definitely pick up Enraged Regeneration. Level 45 talent. There's a few here that a lot of people will kind of mix up between them. There's actually 3 good talents here. This is kind of, it's kind of iffy. Like, Bloodthirst has no cooldown. It's not bad, but you're just gonna be dumping a lot of bullshit there. Like, it's gonna fuck up your rotation. You don't really want to pick this up that much. It's not necessary to have that. Furious Strikes. Wild Strikes cost 25% less rage. Now that is a very good talent. A lot of people do pick this up, but again, it's not really worth it. I mean, it's not. You're not going to be using Wild Strikes that much, and if you did pick this up, it'd probably change your rotation. And I don't like this ability, because even though 25 rage is a lot to lose, Wild Strike should be on your lesser priority to be pressing and using. So it's not something you want to pick up immediately. Whereas Sudden Death, the procs of Executes are going to be absolutely amazing. This Executes are basically the primary point of your damage, and you're going to be hoping for a lot of Sudden Death procs so you can get a lot of Executes out. And we'll be talking about how to get them to proc later on after this talent part. But definitely, I think definitely between these three, it has to be Sudden Death, guys. Definitely pick that up. Next up is another point of kind of confusion for people. A lot of people pick up Shockwave, a lot of people pick up Stormbolt. Not many people pick up Dragon's Roar. Now, Shockwave is very good. It's sort of the same thing I said on my Hunter a while ago, where Binding Shot is very nice because you can catch multiple people in it. Shockwave is the same for that. You can kind of go on Shockwave and get a bunch of people in one Shockwave, and it's very nice. It's very effective for that. But Stormbolt is much more reliable, I guess, is what I want to say. Reliable, it's got a nice range on it. If you do have a charge that's down, or if you're just trying to land a stun to get a kill on a healer, or to CC a healer or something like that, Stormbolt can be very nice for that sort of situation. It also has a less cooldown, so you can stun more and more frequently, which results in basically a better game all around, I find, using a Stormbolt. So definitely pick up Stormbolt, guys. Shockwave maybe for BGs or something like that. We can be versing a lot of people, but I definitely would pick up Stormbolt. Level 75 talent is going to be Mass Spell Reflection. There's no real reason to even talk about these two. You're never going to really use Safeguard that much. I mean, you can use Intervenes, but you don't really need to use Safeguard, and you don't really need to use Vigilance at all. Mass Spell Reflection is going to be basically the only extremely useful talent on this one here. Level 90 talent is between Avatar, Bladestorm, and Bloodbath. A lot of people pick up Bloodbath because they think it's going to do enough damage to kill someone. They want to pick up that bleed damage. A lot of people pick up Avatar. Avatar can actually be used quite effectively, dealing 20% increased damage and removing all roots and snares. Now, this can kind of be used like a Bladestorm to get out of things, and it also has a nice kind of damage increaser, but Bladestorm has a lesser cooldown. So what you want to do is make sure you pick up Bladestorm here, but also make a macro to break it. I'll show you that in a second here, but make sure you have this set up, and make sure you have a macro set up to where you can break your Bladestorm if you're just using it to kind of get out of things. Or for instance, if you Bladestorm on top of someone and they blink away, you can break and charge them or something like that. But we're definitely going to want to pick up Bladestorm in this tier here. Level 100 is going to be Anger Management. Some people do pick up Siegebreaker, but it's more of an arms spec kind of thing. Ravager, also not too bad, but not that great at all. and anger management is just going to be all around pretty fucking good, so make sure you pick that up. Just every 30 rage that you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of several of your abilities. I mean, you're going to be spending rage the entire time you play your class, so naturally that's going to be a really good way to play. And so definitely pick up anger management. Next up, guys, we're going to be looking at glyphs. These are, again, I think for warriors, a lot of people find these to be the most kind of contested glyphs. But I like to pick up Bull Rush. You charge, generates 15 additional rage. This is just a really good starter kind of glyph. If you're ever going to go in and want to dump a bunch of rage for your cooldowns and for your rotation, 15 extra rage is actually going to help out a lot. Next up is going to be Glyph of Root Interruption. So successfully interrupting a spell with Pummel increases your damage by 6%, and you're going to be pummeling a lot. Make sure you have Pummel on your bars and you're using it a lot to interrupt casters or healers, so that's naturally a good thing to have. Next up is Enraged Speed. A lot of people don't pick this up, and I'm not sure why. Fury Warrior spends a lot of their time enraged, and honestly, I feel like while you're enraged, you move 20% faster. It's just a very nice thing to have as a warrior, because naturally you're trying to stay on top of people, so 20% extra speed is going to give you that kind of edge to stay on top of them, especially with like the kind of lag that people experience, or you're trying to stay on top of someone and it's extra kind of hard to kind of stay on top of them. It's something you really want to pick up. And of course, the minor glyphs are all aesthetic glyphs. You don't have to kind of worry about those, but get whatever you feel like you need. But these three glyphs are the ones I definitely run with and I feel I do the best with. So that's the spec and the talents, guys. What I want to talk about next is the stat prioritization. God, I can't speak today. Stat prioritization. And basically what you want to get is you want to make sure that your crits, is about 20%. Now, the reason you want to have about 20% crit is because when you're going in PvP, you want to have 20% above, or a little bit above. You know, if you go above 20% crit, it's kind of void. But above 20% crit is going to be basically where you want to be. As you see here, I only have 15%, but that's because I'm in PvP gear, and it doesn't count if you're outside of PvP, so it's hard for me to show you that. But 15% outside means you're going to be about 20% inside PvP instances, guys. So make sure you're about 20%, and that way when you're PvP and you're charged around and you're doing stuff, you're getting a lot of execute procs and that sort of stuff, and it's going to make your life just a lot better. Once you're 20% crits, you can start focusing on stuff like mastery and all that kind of stuff, and enjoying the fuck out of all your other fucking specs and abilities, and just basically once you get 20% crit, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Now let's get into the rotation for you guys. Naturally, you're gonna want to go in and for a charge, and for me personally, I use a macro that puts on a hamstring. Now this macro is pretty simple to make. I just have show 2-tip charge, /cast charge, cast rend, hamstring, shield slam if I ever go into that kind of stuff, cancel aura, blade storm, and also cast bloodthirst. Now this is very useful for here right here because it kind of does everything I want it to do on one charge. And it's kind of charge in. It's going to do a hamstring, it's going to do my bloodthirst, it's going to get all that kind of stuff. And as you see here, I already got a raging blow proc from that, and that results in me being able to immediately start doing a lot of damage. So make sure you have that macro. Like I said before, that's my macro to cancel my blade storm as well. So if I'm going in and trying to do a lot of damage, I can kind of be over here and say, for instance, this guy right here decides to blink away when I start blade storming. So I'll be on him like this, I'll pop a blade storm, and immediately he blinks over there. I can cancel it and charge him immediately with one macro, with one key click. That's all I need. So make sure you guys have that in your arsenal and be able to click that, because that's honestly the best kind of weapon you have. Another macro I want to talk about, guys, is this one right here. This is a simple show tooltip. Shield barrier, cast defensive stance, cast shield barrier. A lot of warriors forget that defensive stance is even a thing. But it's really crucial for a warrior, especially now for your survivability. Sometimes I'll spend an entire arena game in defensive stance just spamming shield barrier. And what shield barrier does is just reduces your damage taken. It doesn't reduce it by a lot, but it only takes a certain amount of rage. So you can kind of spam that when you're in arena. And honestly, it's kept me alive a lot of times, just spamming this, using my Enraged Regeneration when it's up and that sort of stuff. So make sure you keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is if your charges are down for whatever reason. For instance, if you do this and now they blink away, this is when you should use your Storm Bolts. That's when you should use your Storm Bolt right there if you're just trying to stay on top of someone. Because you just charged over here, your charge is down, and then you can Storm Bolt them and either put a leap on them and jump to them and start DPSing, or if you don't feel confident leaping, throw the Storm Bolt and then leap and make sure you land on them and get a bit of a hamstring on them, make sure they're slowed down. Another thing to keep in mind is to cast Piercing Howl. Piercing Howl is great for when you're DPSing something that is just out of range of that hamstring. So right here, if I cast a Piercing Howl, that's going to get all of this. So if I'm out of range of the hamstring, I can still cast that Piercing Howl and kind of save a charge. before I go in. So make sure you do stuff like that, guys, and just keep in mind you want to have your charge up as much as possible. Don't waste your charge, but also don't be afraid to use it, because you do have other things in your arsenal to close the gap and get close to them again. But let's get back to the DPS rotation here, guys. So you want to charge in and use that macro, and it's going to put hamstring on. It's also going to use your bloodthirst. Now, Warrior is all about procs. So if you have an execute proc, naturally use that immediately. Use that immediately. So as you see here, me just doing normal hits, I'm getting a few execute procs. You don't want to use that all the time. Next up is Raging Blow. Obviously, if you ever have Raging Blow procs, you want to use that. So I actually have it set up my bars here as priority. So it goes Bloodthirst naturally is my, I dump that whenever it's up, and then if I have Execute up, it goes, then if I have Raging Blow it's up, I use that, and then I use my Wild Strikes if they've procced. I never use Wild Strikes unless they've procced, or if I'm sitting at max rage. If I'm sitting at max rage for whatever reason, then I'll start dumping some Raging Blows like that, and then get back into this. You never want to dump too much rage, because it is possible to kind of get a proc and be in a shitty situation because you have no rage or something like that, guys. So make sure you kind of sit on a nice 50% rage there. You get used to it and get used to not spamming your Wild Strikes too much. But that's the simplest rotation right there, guys. For Fury Warrior, it's pretty easy. Just Bloodthirst, press your procs when they're up like that, and you're good to go. Only other things to mention would be your charge, your recklessness, some kind of cooldowns and stuff like that. But cooldowns depend on your kind of teams and whatever you're versing or whatever you're playing with. But just keep in mind that your recklessness is a 3-minute cooldown, so you don't want to waste it, guys. It's going to increase your damage by a lot. It's going to give you a lot more procs on your executes. So I'd like to suggest that you use recklessness when something is below 50% health, so you might be able to secure a kill. Keep in mind that Pummel is there, and you do have Stormbolt, so you should be able to interrupt stuff pretty efficiently. And keep in mind that you also have your Rallying Cry and things like that. Make sure that you use your Rallying Cry to stay alive and don't kind of waste it. I see a lot of people waste Rallying Cry for no fucking reason. They're not actually saving their life. They're just popping it because they think they need a defensive. But it doesn't do anything if you just pop it. You need to make sure you do it in a dying moment to kind of keep you alive. Other thing to mention is Die by the Sword is parry, guys. Make sure that you're facing your target while you have Die by the Sword up, and use your fear effectively to fear more than one target at a time if you possibly can. It helps a lot if you can get a double fear on people, guys, so just keep that in mind. And that's about it. That's about all you guys need to know to start doing your PvP in 6.1. Hope this guide helped, guys. Have a good day, have a good life, have a good year. I will see you in the next video. See you later, guys.